My name's Emma. I am the Advocacy and Organizing Director at Resource Rural and have been supporting some amazing rural grassroots organizations running campaigns to improve their school infrastructure. And about a year and a half, or about a year ago, we and a bunch of other partners on this call decided to pull together our networks of people involved in green and healthy schools campaigns to come together quarterly to share learnings and support one another. And it's really been quite a year, and I'm glad to have this space with you all today to sort of dig into a really hopeful campaign opportunity to leverage federal funding that's still available to upgrade heating and cooling systems to make public schools healthier and more comfortable and more resilient places to teach and learn. So, as a quick overview of today's agenda, we're going to introduce some key concepts about the benefits of modern heating, ventilation, and air conditioning solutions, what we'll probably refer to as HVAC a bunch on the call today. And we're really going to focus in on ground source heat pumps, a technology that Undaunted K-12 is going to tell us a lot more about in a bit, because there's a great opportunity for schools to still earn a 50% reimbursement for installing this kind of heating and cooling system with a federal clean energy tax credit. We're going to hear insights from the Energy and Sustainability Manager at the Washoe County School District in Nevada, which has implemented ground source heat pumps. And then we're going to have some breakout rooms to hear from campaigners with Citizen Action Wisconsin and Ohio Organizing Collaborative and Up North Advocacy Education Fund, who are going to share their learnings from leading local campaigns around healthy heating and cooling systems. And then they're going to facilitate some breakout room discussions to sort of brainstorm about how what we've learned might be relevant for your campaigns and school districts. With that, we want to just create a little bit of space for us all to get to know each other a little bit better. So we're going to go into breakout rooms of four for about 10 minutes. In the breakout rooms, it'd be great if you can, again, sort of reintroduce yourself, share where you're coming from, your organization, school, location. Then tell the other folks in the group a little bit about what you're organizing to win in your school district if you're involved in a campaign. And then more broadly, just kind of reflect together on where you're seeing energy or momentum in your community right now and sort of how you're thinking about tapping into that energy or momentum for your campaigns. Okay, so with that, Vicki is going to open up some breakout rooms for us and we'll be in there for 10 minutes. Amazing. Welcome back, everybody. I hope those were great conversations, getting to know each other a little bit better. With that, I think we're going to jump right in. So I'll hand it over to Undaunted K-12 to tell us a little bit more about heating, ventilation, and cooling systems.
Thanks for having me. My name is Sara Ross. I'm a co-founder of Undaunted K-12. We've been so excited to support the work that happens in this advocacy space. So thanks for having us. We're here to talk about modern HVAC systems, as Emma teed up for us so nicely. We're a group that does this work through awareness building, thought leadership, policy development. We're really interested in making sure that every student has a safe, resilient, and healthy school building in which to learn. And we also think about how to evolve the learning agenda so that young people are prepared for what's to come. So a little bit about us. We're a virtual org spread across the country. So maybe as we get into this, just to start to get ourselves into our own spaces, it'd be great if folks could put into the chat, some of what they're experiencing or their school districts are experiencing, what you're hearing is happening in the classrooms with things like classroom temperature and comfort, air quality inside and outside classrooms. Upper Midwest had a lot of wildfire smoke last season. Budgets, how are rising and variable energy costs affecting our budgets? Data centers are driving up energy demand and with it energy costs in many parts of the country. How is aging infrastructure? How is that becoming a concern for student and staff safety? And, are you hearing about maintenance budgets that are being stretched, maintenance teams that are being stretched, trying to keep up with all the needs across our building portfolios? That'll start to get some of the wheels turning for you and others if you share some of that in the chat as we dive in here. Okay, three big messages here today. One, heat pumps, we'll talk about more about what the heck those are a modern HVAC solution that can help us reduce our costs and also improve classroom environments. Two, there's non-competitive funding that's available for ground source heat pumps, still available for many years to come, through 2034. And then three, advocates can really help school districts take advantage of this generational funding opportunity for healthier school buildings. Are you all still hearing me?
We are.
Yes. Great. You all are frozen for me, so I'm glad I'm still with you. If heat pumps are a new topic to you, we have a great resource. So part of what we're going to do today is just give you the basics on what heat pumps are so that you feel confident engaging in conversations here. But there's more to read and learn. I'm not an engineer, and this topic was intimidating for me. We wrote a paper called HVAC Choices for Student Health and Learning. That's all about supporting advocates, school leaders, and policymakers that are themselves not engineers engage on this topic. So it'll give you some key concepts, help you arm you with the 6 benefits of selecting all electric high performance HVAC systems, and think about approaches to evaluating costs that can really help drive responsible decision making in this area. One of the big things that I was shocked to learn when I first got into this is that our HVAC systems are actually responsible for the vast majority of energy usage in our K-12 schools, which means there's a lot here to dig into. If we can make these systems more efficient, there's good savings to be had there. They also, because the vast majority of them burn fossil fuels, they're also tied to most of our greenhouse gas emissions. 61% of our HVAC energy usage is connected to fossil fuels that we're burning on site. So there's a lot to be gained from an economic perspective, and there's a lot to be gained from a climate perspective if we can focus our advocacy and drive change in this building system within our schools. So what's the shift we're trying to drive? We're trying to move from legacy equipment. This is kind of the framework we set up in the paper. Legacy equipment that tends to be inefficient and by and large tends to burn fossil fuels. So steam heating, boilers, electric heat doesn't burn fossil fuels, but not very efficient. Electric resistance heat. And we want to shift the world to where we're deploying these modern systems in our buildings. And what's great about these modern systems is they also come with cooling. It's a 2-for-1 machine. So in many of our school buildings that weren't not built for cooling, this is a huge advantage from a health perspective to moving to these modern machines. So let's dig in a little more. Legacy HVAC. When we think about legacy HVAC systems, what are we talking about? Again, these are systems that burn fossil fuels, typically gas, sometimes in parts of the country, oil or propane. These are heating only systems, so they give us no air conditioning, and they typically don't accommodate ventilation. Very important for healthy school buildings. Filtration, we think about schools that are located near highways or again that are experiencing wildfire smoke, we really need filtration. These old systems aren't going to be able to give us those benefits in the classroom. They're not very efficient. The most efficient one is 99% efficient. When you hear people talk about boilers or packaged central units, when you hear those words, that's the language of legacy HVAC systems. That's when you know you're in that world. What do we think of when we think of modern HVAC systems? Okay, now we're in the world of not burning fossil fuels to make heat, but using electricity, hopefully clean, if we have solar on the roof or our utility is giving us clean electricity, to move heat that already exists. We don't need to make it, we can just move it. It's in our air, it's in our water, and we can move that, or in the ground, we can move that into our buildings. These systems accommodate advanced filtration and ventilation, so healthier classrooms all around, and they're much more efficient. 200 to 700% efficient. We're putting in 1 unit of energy and getting out 2 to 7 units of heat. Much more efficient, right? So again, you don't need to be a tree hugger to see that this is a smarter mousetrap. The language of these modern systems, again, heat pumps, economizers, dedicated outdoor air systems, demand-controlled ventilation, where we're ventilating spaces as much as we need to when they're inhabited. MERV 13, that's referring to a filter that's able to pull wildfire smoke, for example, out of the air. This is the language of the modern HVAC systems that we want to be deployed in our schools. So going a little deeper on one of these machines that Emma teed up, we were going to focus on ground source heat pumps, also called geothermal heat pumps. Same thing. What are they doing? Well, they're using the constant temperature underneath our feet, and it's typically 55 degrees when you get 10 feet down, and they're moving it into our buildings when we need heat and we're taking heat from our buildings and dumping them into the ground when we need to cool our buildings. So again, a 2-for-1 machine that does heating and cooling. This technology is feasible in all states and even in dense urban environments. So we are retrofitting skyscrapers in Manhattan with geothermal drilling in the basement. So this is possible, technically possible in all places. But I will say there'll be certain contexts where it'll be more economical than in others. It's certainly expensive to do that kind of retrofit in Manhattan. So, all places possible, but there are some places that are going to be more economically possible. One thing that makes all of this more financially feasible is the continued availability of energy tax credits. I think this group is quite familiar with these tax credits. We've been using them to, advocate for solar and make the financial case for solar. That same tax credit that used to be around for solar is still around for ground source heat pumps. It was untouched by the July budget reconciliation law. So it's available for all projects that we can get started in our communities through December 31st, 2034. You just have to start the project by then to get a tax credit. The tax credits can be anywhere from 6 to 50% of the total cost. And all locations qualify. So new construction, retrofits qualify, all locations in the US qualify. So this is a great opportunity. And of course, we turn those tax credits into cash reimbursements for our schools through something called elective pay. So here's a picture of a check. School districts get very excited when you see an actual check for over $1 million that one school district in Wisconsin got for installing ground source and a few solar arrays. And they have more of these 7-digit checks on the way for more ground source heat pump work that they are doing. So one message that's really important for advocates to locate in their own communities and to bring into these decision-making circles is that these tax credits have changed the economics of this system choice. So this is for a new school construction project in Pennsylvania. On the left, it's the cost to install, and you're seeing that once we take into consideration the tax credit, that's that yellow section of the bar, once we lop that off, lo and behold, the ground source heat pump is actually the more affordable option to install. And then on the right, you're seeing, lo and behold, because remember, 700% efficient, right? Much more efficient machine. This 1K to 1 building, right? So a small building is going to save almost $8 million over 30 years for this district by installing the clean energy machine instead of the legacy inefficient fossil fuel machine. So there's a really strong financial case that you can make. We've got lots of these examples on our website for you to use as you think about your advocacy approach here. This pattern is repeating itself across markets. So Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Maryland, those are just some of the examples where we've seen the same pattern, penciling out. You'll hear another one from Nevada with Sandor here. And it also is the case in renovation. So this is a different way to picture it, looking through time at the cost of installing and then operating a system. And through time, you see these lines kind of spreading out. 12.9 million to install and operate the gas system, 8.6 million to install and operate over 25 years the ground source heat pump system. So another way to think about making the financial case, life cycle cost analysis. This form of analysis. So on our website, you will see lots of examples of schools that have gotten checks for ground source heat pumps. That's a great way to drive advocacy. You can learn more about projects through webinars that we have on our website in our elective pay and action section. We're also tracking all these green dots are all ground source heat pump systems that we're tracking across the country that are in various states of development. They're planning them, they're constructing them right now. They've gotten checks already. And we also have a whole section on our website in our Energy Tax Credits Hub devoted just to the ground source heat pump opportunity where we've curated many of these resources. So I hope that's given you the 101 and whet your appetite about the tax credit opportunity, and excited to pass it off and hear more about this coming to life in a district. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Sandor, I think you're up next. We're excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name's Sandor Rosta. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Let me just put this up. Let me get this thing out of the way. There we go. All right. You can see this
Yes.
and hear me okay? Okay, great. Let me move
There's
this.
there's just one
Yep.
window hovering over.
See that little guy right there? Let's get that out of the way. Cool. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That was a really good overview. As someone who is an engineer, a lot of that information is perfectly good. We're all pretty familiar with you're probably more familiar with heat pumps than you think. Your refrigerator is basically a heat pump, right? It's keeping things cold in the middle of your house. It's just taking that heat from there out. So they are modern but they are sophisticated, but they're all around us all the time. So you probably have more experience with them than you think. Um, so yeah, I'm coming from the Washoe County School District. And since this is a group of an audience of advocates and policymakers and people looking to establish things, I kind of wanted to highlight what our district has been doing in terms of policy wins for us in order to get to the position where we're at. So ground source heat pumps is basically our basis of design here in Northern Nevada. And I think our first one was done in 2004. So this was even before a lot of these tax incentives and things like that happened. So yeah, I wanted to go over some legislative action that our community took in order to put us into a position where we're at. Some of the policy actions that our board of trustees took years ago to basically establish ground source heating as our basis of design, and then kind of go over some of the things that maybe made our community a little bit more aware of this technology and therefore more willing to be an early adopter of this type of stuff. And then go over a little bit of stuff in our schools, kind of what our portfolio looks like and what we're seeing in real benefits. And then despite all this policy action and things like that, we still tend to have to fight for these systems on new systems as well. And then kind of go over some closing thoughts. So hopefully this doesn't drop off. Okay. So historically, a little less than 10 years ago, the local voters here in Northern Nevada passed a tax that distinctly benefits the Washoe County School District for constructing, renovating, and maintaining new schools. This is a pretty fantastic resource as it gives a lot of capital funding into to modernizing schools and keeping, basically making capital projects happen. It's not uncommon for districts to do this and communities to do this. It just was not present before 2016 in any real way. This was a huge deal for the school district here, bringing in money, which I know is a huge resource to have. So this really paved the way and enabled the school and the capital planning and the board to make a 15-year strategic plan in the school districts themselves to improve operational conditions in the schools and to do new capital projects. And so we now currently have this facility modernization plan, which is a 15-year plan that's going to touch every school in our district and at least bring it up to some consistent level of educational spec. Hopefully also improving things like air quality and the educational opportunities at various schools and kind of setting releveling the playing field. So this was a big deal. This brought in a lot of capital money in order for us to make decisions. About a year later, the actual Washoe County School District Board established a policy for energy conservation and sustainability. And I highlighted this over here, that the initial policy was that the district will incorporate ground source geothermal heat pump systems in all new constructions and where practical in all major renovations. This language has since been removed, but it still remains our basis of design in practice. But yeah, this policy was a big win. It also established basically this role that I'm in here, and I'm pretty much a full-time sustainability advocate, working on energy efficiency, maintaining our renewable energy portfolio, which is actually pretty good. We have about 4 megawatts of solar in our district. And yeah, we touch everything. We're looking at material waste, recycling, water, and capital construction on new projects. So this was a huge win, and this took a lot of effort. I'm sure a lot of you can imagine how much almost politicking and community meetings it took to get a policy like this to even be in place. So this is a huge win for this district. So the capital funding that we get and the board's willingness to even adopt a policy like this is a huge game changer. So this is what sort of put us in the position that we were. So we don't have to have huge fights when it comes to building with geothermal systems. It's just kind of like we've got the practice, we've got a lot of case studies now on its utilization, and this is probably why. So here in Northern Nevada, we have more raw geothermal resources than any other state. We're second to California in our actual geothermal energy production. So there's 26 plants all over Nevada with a capacity exceeding 800 megawatts, which is pretty substantial.
Wants to join us on a walk.
Oh, you guys hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So currently in our state, we're geothermal has been used going back 10,000 years. Native American populations were using these because it's literally coming out of the ground in some spots. So this is also probably what has done a lot to prime the community here to accept geothermal, because it's quite literally in our face. So in our schools today, we've got 15 of our 100 schools, so about 15% of our total building population is utilizing ground source geothermal HVAC. And this goes back all the way to 2004, like I said. So this predates a lot of the just basic or a lot of the modern or current incentives that are in place. So again, that's taken a lot of convincing to basically bake this into how we design. And once it's there, it's almost hard to remove, right? So we currently have one more school under construction and one more planned. So one should be done by the next school year of 2026. It's an elementary school, and then another kind of combo elementary middle that's in development now. Ground source heat pumps are the basis. What we see in real practice mirrors a lot what Sara presented. We see the energy use intensity, that's the energy use per square foot. It's like 55%. It consumes about 55% less energy than a typical boiler chiller type of HVAC system. And we do have those in our district as well. So that 55% energy reduction, that's with our schools that have it, the 14 schools that are in operation, on average, we're saving about $685,000 a year in operational spend, which is meaningful, very meaningful. This Hug High School, that's a picture of one of our high schools. This is a construction picture of them, laying out the ground loops and things like that during construction. So, as I said, even though we have all these things in place, we still do have to fight for these because the policy was sort of watered down. We still have to do, Sara's graphs were much better explaining the actual costs and life cycle in a visual way. Sorry, this is in a tabular form, but it expresses the same thought. So on the new project that I just said that we're about to, that we got approved, we did have to do a financial analysis, a cost analysis comparing a traditional heat pump or a traditional construction mechanical system with boilers and chillers against this ground source heat pump. So as you can see, if without the incentives, doing the bore field and installing the geothermal heat pump system, the plant itself was about $2 million more than what a traditional system would be. If you include these incentives, the elective pay and the direct pay from the IRS, the federal tax credits, which again, we're largely in touch. So this is approved and these are good to go for well past 2030. It shows the same thing that Sara was showing. This system actually became cheaper. Ground source heat pumps became cheaper when including those tax credits. Plus, you add on the additional benefit of the energy cost savings, and these are like slam dunk projects for us. So even though we have it baked in, we still have to do these types of analysis to further at least show to the board and our capital protection funding committee that we are trying to do the best with our school's resources when it comes to developing new projects, looking for long-term savings. And we're pretty beneficial, or it's a good benefit for us because they do take these things into account and they say, oh, you're being a good steward of the community's money. These are approved, right? So that's what I would say. So closing on sort of our lessons learned, it is a good thing to understand this technology. So understanding what Sara was saying and like get familiar with it. They are modern systems, but there are a lot of variables to consider. So solicit input from your engineers, mechanical, civil, geotechnical people if you're looking to, make these cases in your own communities, because ground conditions can change. They can change over a site. Like if you have a large high school site, you might have hard rock at one part of it, and the north end and south end could be some clay and stuff like that. You might have to drill way down to get back to the hard rock. So there are some technical issues but that's what your engineers and architects are for, right? Drillers, that's also a benefit. A lot of the drilling, Nevada's a mining community, so we've had this history of drilling. They are all around the country, but the experience does vary as well. So you want to kind of like get input from your drillers and people who have done these projects before. They might say like, oh yeah, these guys are good, these guys are bad. And also engage with some of these tax advisors that can help you with the details of participating with the federal tax credits, because you probably can do them yourselves, but a lot of time just getting that input, especially on deadlines, what's changed, what survived the one big beautiful bill, et cetera. I kind of find them to be very helpful. Also work to understand the variables around this implementation. Like I said, there's a lot of different configurations. Yes, you can go straight down, you can go wide, and all those things have cost impacts. So there's also an issue around ongoing maintenance. So they are sophisticated machines. A lot of times, especially if your district is similar to ours, you might not have maintenance staff that are trained on maintaining heat pumps. So that is an issue. Sometimes a lot of those guys like to use old systems. They'll advocate for older systems because they're like, oh, we have parts for these, we can get into them. Sometimes these heat pumps do require technology interfaces, things like that. But it's just something to know going in. And then when it comes to like getting these policies, it is a good idea to engage with the key decision makers and policymakers within your organization, not just at the board, but even if it's the capital projects team, if you have a design team, and try to engage with them to understand what the challenges and issues they face. So if you can get in early and you can bring in data, well-informed case studies like Undaunted prepares and things like this, if you can get specific data from your area, you can engage with those people as early as possible, and you might find that they're more open at the very beginning of a project, rather than retroactively or once they've already started building, right? That's just way too late. So yeah, if you can demonstrate kind of what their goals are, demonstrate how these ground source heat pumps are aligned with those goals, you can bring together the funding aspects and the incentive opportunities with the ultimate goal of making the case that these ground source heat pumps really are in the best interest of your community and your school board to make these decisions to invest in this stuff, because these buildings will last forever, and these systems, in our nearly 20-year run with them, I don't think I've heard of one issue of us having to dig up the well field to fix the leak, to do anything like that. So there is a good track record of these performing really well over long periods of time. So that's those are my closing thoughts. So
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sandor. If you want to take down your slides, I'll go ahead and pull mine up. And we'll jump to the next bit of information. How do my slides look?
Looking good.
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriela. I am with Undaunted K-12 on Sara's team, and I'm a network and engagement manager on the team. And now that you've all learned about modern HVAC systems from Sara, and you heard about an example of a district implementing one from Sandor, we're going to pull out some key insights for advocates. First, the money is there. Billions are spent every year on school HVAC systems, and so there's clearly an opportunity to influence how that money is going to be spent. Secondly, we'd like to make it clear that there are key opportunities in which an HVAC system will be chosen, and thus when advocates can push for a modern system. Those are commonly when a new school is being built, when a school is being modernized, or when a school has a HVAC system that needs to be replaced. And third, in order to advocate for modern HVAC systems, advocates need to understand the decision-making and implementation process. It's key to know when decisions are going to be made about HVAC systems, who makes that decision, and what it takes to actually implement a project. So there is a clear opportunity here to advocate for HVAC systems, and we're going to talk a bit more about what advocates should know when it comes to this technology. So advocating for HVAC systems is different. And to show you that and build on some of those key insights, we're going to compare HVAC projects to solar projects. This table will walk us through each of those differences and we'll explain what implications that has for advocacy around HVAC systems. So whether or not you've advocated for solar before, we hope talking through these dimensions and these differences will be helpful. First, the key difference is that HVAC systems are required for all schools versus solar being more of an option for schools. All schools need an HVAC system to heat or cool their building. Because it's required, at some point an HVAC system will be installed and someone in the district will need to make a choice. The opportunity to advocate for which HVAC choice will be there. This is different than solar, in which advocates need to convince district leaders to install solar in the first place. Next is the timing of decision-making. When a new HVAC system has to be decided on, we're making a choice for 25, 30, or even 50 years, because that's how long schools tend to operate these systems. This means that, one, the window to advocate for an HVAC choice is very narrow when we're advocating for a choice building by building. And two, whatever HVAC choice is made is going to have long-lasting impacts on health, emissions, costs, and more. For solar, the timing of decision-making is likely a lot more flexible. However, and building off of Sandor's presentation and example, advocates can also think about how planning processes and policies can help guide these decisions around HVAC systems towards heat pump options. So, for example, he shared that there was a mandated ground source heat pump policy, and although that was repealed, it had continued to direct the decisions that the district was making in the long term and in moving forward. So things like this can help districts keep moving in this direction, even if advocates aren't there at every decision-making table. The third difference is about the scale of capital investment. Moving from legacy to modern HVAC systems is always going to be a substantial investment. Solar can be scaled down to be a very small investment, even one that can be covered by community donations. And that's just simply not the case with HVAC systems. So the key here is to remember that these systems are required. Although they are large investments and that may be daunting as an advocate, they're going to happen at some point. It's not really a question of whether we're going to spend this money, but how we should spend it. So advocates can use this required large investment as a selling point for district leaders to choose wisely. Fourth difference here, transitioning from legacy to modern HVAC systems is a major undertaking and is typically part of a major modernization project. It can be disruptive, and oftentimes this work has to happen over 1 or 2 summers. Students might need to be moved to other buildings when new HVAC systems are being installed for their comfort and for their safety. And so this is different than solar, which is not generally disruptive to the building or to regular activities. Because of this, advocates should be mindful about how this scale disruption will impact the district and how they can support the district in managing stakeholders like parents or teachers who may be unhappy with these disruptions. And then our final difference here is about the project timeline. Completing an HVAC system can take years of planning and design before reaching installation, whereas solar can take just a few months. An HVAC project is like a marathon, and installing solar is like a sprint. advocates for modern HVAC systems will have to plan for a multi-year effort. As people come and go and as obstacles arise, advocates will need to pass on institutional knowledge and stick it for the long haul. In addition to the report Sara shared earlier, we also have 2 short pieces. They're called Key Impacts and Big Ideas and 6 Benefits of Modern HVAC Systems. These 2 pieces can be shared with others on your teams, in your school districts, and at the decision-making table to foster shared language and an understanding of these concepts. We can go ahead and drop these links in the chat as well. And with that, thanks so much for listening. And this was a lot of information. We hope it was motivational to advocate for modern HVAC systems. And we're here to answer any questions. My email address is on the slide, and I'm happy to share that in the chat as well. Thanks. And now I'll pass it off to Emma.
Awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through that. Super helpful. So now we're finally, after absorbing all of this information, going to have an opportunity to sort of dig in deeper together and digest it. We are going to go into some breakout rooms where you can hear from some local organizers about what they've learned actually running some campaigns to improve heating and cooling systems in their district. I'm going to explain how to choose your breakout room in a moment, but first I just want to give you a preview of the presentation that'll happen in each room so you can choose where you want to go. So in room 1, Kat is going to talk about the work she's been leading with Citizen Action Wisconsin to push the Milwaukee Public Schools, a big urban resource-constrained district, to do facilities planning and assessments around electrification and HVAC upgrades, including ground source heat pumps. Then in room number 2, Tara and Amanda are going to share from a statewide perspective how Ohio Organizing Collaborative has been focusing their strategy on sort of the low-hanging fruit of getting school districts that they know are going to be constructing new buildings to install ground source heat pumps so they don't miss a really big chance to install a new technology that'll lead to healthier classrooms. And then in room 3, Calvin is going to share about a campaign in a small rural school district in northern Michigan that really emerged from the pressing need to update an aging heating system that was sort of on the brink of failure. All right. Thanks, everybody, for taking some time in breakout rooms. I hope that those were great discussions and interesting presentations. I know that our group was getting into the weeds with lots of resource sharing, so we'll try and compile some of those links and send them out in a follow-up email. Moving into sort of our closing and some more sharing of resources, I think Gabby's going to pop into the chat. We have a bunch of links if you want to dig in deeper to any of these topics. So first, we have kind of like 2 sort of high-level overviews for if you want to kind of get just like a high-level overview of modern HVAC systems. This might be something that's helpful to share with your school district or some of your members as they're kind of trying to wrap their heads around this. Then there's a document that's a kind of a deeper dive into modern HVAC systems, and then another document that kind of goes deeper into ground source heat pumps in particular and the tax credit that's available. In terms of next steps, if you're leaving this call sort of fired up in terms of thinking about how to advance modern HVAC systems in your district, some things that we'd recommend as next steps, and I think that maybe Gabby can post these in there as well so folks can take them with you, or it's also in our agenda, is first just getting a sense of kind of baseline. So does your district have any previous experience with heat pumps? If so, what kind of type have they used before? Maybe air source versus ground source heat pumps, and what's their experience been with that technology? Trying to understand if the district has any plans, maybe things like upcoming facility upgrades or HVAC replacements that they're already planning on, or plans to retrofit or build new schools, or capital improvement plans that are going to be implemented. Trying to learn a little bit more about funding. Are there any bonds that have recently passed? This is a big topic of conversation in our breakout room. Any state allocated money, state grant or loan programs, or other sources of funding for school facility upgrades. So all of those are things that might be accomplished through doing some research meetings with folks who may be decision makers in your district. Maybe that's sitting down with somebody on the school board who you might anticipate would be interested in some of these topics, or setting up a meeting with the superintendent or a facilities manager. And then the last piece is other people. So are there other people in your community that are interested or already advocating around heating or cooling systems? Are they aware of ground source heat pumps as an opportunity? Might they be allies? So really starting conversations conversations with other folks who can help you really build a team to start to think through some of these questions and maybe do some of those research meetings. So if you dig into any of these on our next call, we'd love to hear more what you found. And if you do go down this path and are running into challenges or need some help, Gabby's volunteered to hop on the phone and help you. So she's going to put her email into the chat, and you're welcome to follow up there. For one more resource, I'm going to just hand it over to Chelsea just to give a quick overview of one more sort of hands-on support opportunity.
Yes, I'm also your note taker today, so I'm furiously typing in our notes doc. Hi everyone. So I also co-facilitate this space. My name is Chelsea, and I work at Building Power Resource Center, and we're a national resource hub for community groups and local governments who are developing and implementing clean energy programs. And we do a bunch of stuff, but I'm our schools person, and we give hands-on wraparound technical assistance. So some of you all here are a member of our cohort, and I just wanted to share, we have just launched an interest form for people who might want to receive some of our technical assistance next year. Hopefully that works. Everybody on this call does amazing technical assistance. So there are many opportunities here, but this is live as of an hour ago. So I just wanted to share with you. And if you know other people who might benefit from this type of support, feel free to send it their way. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. And I know other folks are popping more resources in the chat, so feel free to keep doing that. And as I said, we'll try and compile them to send out. All right. So with that, I'm going to close out. Thank you all so much for spending an hour and a half of your Friday afternoon with us. Thank you for bearing with many technical issues. You may have seen my internet cut out for a minute and I left. So it was just a whirlwind of technical issues, but we are glad you stuck with us. It was really great to be in community with you all. We are going to follow up in our email early next week with information about sort of the next call date and time as we go into the new year. It'll be sometime in the first quarter of next year. And we can stick around for a few minutes if folks have any last questions they'd like to talk through. But with that, I will let folks go. You have a great weekend, and thanks again for being here.